FOG number 191 is Tim Glasby. Tim was born in Townsville but grew up in Rockhampton, where he played with both brothers and the North Rockhampton Knights. In 2008 and 9, Tim Glasby was a member of the Penrith Panthers NYC team before returning home to play with the Capras in the Queensland Cup, where he was named Player of the Year for 3 consecutive seasons. In 2013, Tim joined the Melbourne Storm and made his NRL debut in round 16 against the West Tigers. His first Origin game came in Game 2 of the 2017 series. In all, Tim Glasby played 5 games for Queensland over a 3-year period. A member of the Melbourne premiership winning side of 2017, Tim played in 3 consecutive grand finals. In 2019, he joined the Newcastle Knights, where he finished his career, having played 138 NRL games. Well, Tim Glasby, thanks so much for your time. What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
It's I get a mix of emotions when I think about being a FOG, I think. I'm obviously very proud and humbled that I get to join what's a very elite group of people, or some of the best players in the game are FOGs, and the people that I grew up idolising, they're FOGs, and I'm a FOG now, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, it probably just makes me think about when I was a kid and growing up, and it's all like Origin time. That time of year was always just so special where I was and where I grew up, and I'm guessing the same for all of Queensland. And for me to be able to, go on to play a role for Queensland was, it's something that I'll be proud of forever.
Well, let's go back to growing up, one of many FOGs that have grown up in regional Queensland. Grew up in Rocky. What was it like growing up in Rockhampton?
Good. It was what I would think is, I had your normal childhood, I think. I had 2 brothers that were, they're twins and they're a year older than me. So 3 of us pretty close in age. We played a lot of footy. We got out, we rode our bikes around, went to school, and like I said, I think it was pretty much a normal upbringing, and it was all about sport. We were outside heaps. So in summer you play cricket, and in winter you play footy, and whether it's in the backyard or you're riding down to the local oval to play, or all that sort of thing, it was all about sport for us. Yeah.
And where did you first start playing?
I started playing for the North Knights in Rockhampton there. I played, I think, a year when I was a little fella, like when I was 5 or 6, and then I went off and played soccer for a few years, actually. I think I had some friends at school that were playing soccer, and I wanted to join them. But then when I was 10, I wanted to play footy again. My brothers they kept playing footy all the way through, and I was keen to join them. So I joined their team as a 10-year-old. So they were in the under 11s and sort of played on their team. Yeah, it was good.
And so from then to end up at Penrith playing NYC, what those years in between, how did you get noticed to head down to Sydney?
I think I was playing at a rep carnival, like a schoolboys rep carnival. I'd made a couple of like Central Queensland teams, and maybe I'm going to say the under 13s and 14s, and then 15s. And I think at the schoolboys under 15s carnival, an agent approached my mum and dad, and that's probably the moment I thought, oh, what, an agent's interested in me? What? There you go. I was just playing because I love playing footy, and then that's where it sort of started leading towards. That was probably where it started, me potentially going along the path of playing footy as a job, I guess. And it wasn't until I was about 17 that the Panthers signed me to go down when I finished school. And so, yeah, from when I was about 15, 17, that couple of years, I was probably taking it a bit more seriously, and, started going to the gym and trying to improve myself, because I'd made squads. I was never one of the better players in those squads or anything like that. I was just, a toiler, I guess, that just got on with it and, yeah, did my best. So,
And what was the move like to Penrith?
it was tough. Yeah, it was really hard. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she came with me. So I was 17 when I moved. So I'd just finished school as a 17-year-old and went straight down to Penrith for pre-season. And yeah, it was tough going, like both footy wise, because I was, I guess, the country kid coming in. The Penrith have a huge nursery of players that they had back then. They still have the same sort of thing now, where these guys come through the ranks together as a group, and then you get sort of plonked in there as a country kid. And they're, I don't know, reflecting now, I think they were probably bigger and faster and stronger than me, most of them, and I probably struggled physically, and then off field it was a struggle as well, because you're a young kid moving away from home, so there was financial struggles. We did it pretty tough, my wife and I. Like we we didn't, yeah. You don't know what you don't you don't know what you don't know, right? And so we struggled for a long time. And then we got better at living away from home, and we finally got jobs and all that sort of stuff, and got moving there. So it definitely got better, but it was tough going for a bit.
What sort of a role do you think that played in your future development as a player?
I think it made a big impact on me in terms of like being on the on-field stuff. Like I said, I think they were bigger and faster and stronger than me, most of them, and so it meant I had to work pretty hard to catch up. Because if I kept going at the pace I was going, and they were going at the pace they were going, they would have just streaked ahead of me. So I had to work pretty hard just to catch up or keep up. So, and I think that probably instilled a bit of. Well, I think I had a good work ethic, but I think it just drove it even further for me. And then the off-field stuff, like I said, struggling and all that, moving away from home at a young age, it was character building, no doubt. And we still often, my wife and I, talk about that and talk about how tough it was. And we're very grateful for everything that we've had since. And yeah, don't want to go back to those days, that's for sure.
Well, you came back home to play with the Capras for 3 years, 3 consecutive Player of the Years for Central Queensland, which sparked interest from the Melbourne Storm. Take us through that.
Yeah, well, I finished playing NYC at the Panthers, and essentially at the time I was 20. I was going to turn 21, and they didn't have a spot in their NRL squad for me, which was fair because I wasn't playing at that level. And I had an option to stay in Penrith and play New South Wales Cup for Windsor Wolves, which was their team at the time. And I just thought, well, we've done it tough for a few years. Let's go home and try and get a gig with the Queensland Cup team. If you're going to play reserve grade, you might as well play it close to home, right? So, so that was the thought process behind it. And to be honest, I didn't expect too much from it. I was really just getting home. I was just getting home. It had been a rough few years, and I didn't at that point think that I had much of a future past Queensland Cup. I thought NRL was probably off the cards. And I was thinking, let's just get home and play Queensland Cup and keep enjoying my footy. And I remember being in pre-season on my first season back there, and we'd missed out on a few years of being with your mates and doing all that, getting on the drink and doing all the things they do every weekend, and they were still doing all that, and I kind of wanted to just join them, but I was missing it because I had training and I was committed to this pre-season, and I nearly pulled the plug. I thought maybe at best I'd get 5 games of cup that year, and the rest of the year I'd be playing local league. And I was like, is it worth it? I'd probably rather just enjoy my time with my friends. But it was my wife that said, why don't you just see how the preseason goes and make a call at the end of that? And then sure enough, I played round 1, and then I had a good trial game, and then I played round 1 and then round 2, and then off it went. So all of a sudden I was player of the year, like you said. And then the next year managed to snag that again. And then the next year the Storm knocked on my door. So yeah.
What was that like?
It was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm a financial planner by trade, and I was working at the time. And yeah, Paul Bunn, who I now work with pretty closely, he called and basically asked if I'd be interested in, moving down to Melbourne. And I basically said, yeah, sure. Like, I'd love to. So yeah, it was a good time, and it was good. It was a good, I suppose, reward for some hard work over a few years.
And sacrifices.
Yeah.
And Walking into the Melbourne Storm environment, what was that like? Everyone talks about that first pre-season, etc. What was it like walking into Melbourne and preparing to play for the Storm?
Yeah, it was pretty daunting, and everyone talks about how hard their pre-seasons were. That I trained a bit too hard, I think, in the lead up to it, and I turned up to training at about 98 kilos when they'd signed me as maybe 106 or 107 kilo player. So I was about 10 kilos too light, which they weren't too impressed with. It meant I could run, like I was all right with the running, but I was getting ragdolled in any contact stuff. So that probably set me back a little bit. Not in terms of, I don't think it set me back in terms of what they thought of me as a worker, but just in terms of being physically able to cope with the training, that would have set me back a bit. But yeah, it was a real pinch yourself sort of moment for me. I remember being out at training and, Cooper Cronk and Billy Slater and Cameron Smith are there, telling you what to do. And, I was like, I can't believe I'm on the field with these guys. So to just train with them was amazing. And then, eventually to get a game and all that was incredible.
Well, you made your debut against the Tigers in 2013, so it didn't take long, really, when you think about it. You must have put a few kilos on to be able to make your NRL debut. What are your memories of that?
Of the debut, it was a shocking night at Leichhardt. It was pouring rain against the Tigers, and there must have been an inch of water over the field. It was horrible, and the ball would hit the ground and just stop in the water, and we lost, which sucked for your debut. But it was still a dream come true to get a game, and I reckon there'd be a lot of kids out there that think that if they played just one NRL game, they'd be happy, and I was. But then all I wanted was another one. So it was probably a tough initiation into playing NRL, but it's one I'll never forget.
So that was midway through the season. You got, I think, another game in that year, and then the games started to flow after that. You mentioned that you didn't think you'd get to the NRL. That's why you went back home. At that stage, I would imagine Origin was never on the radar. When did you start even thinking that you might be a chance of playing Origin for Queensland?
For probably, I think in 2015, I was in an emerging Origin squad. And then maybe the next year I was in it again from memory. So maybe 15 and then 16. And I think I thought that's probably about as far as it would go for me again. So, but I was really just focused on playing at the Storm. Obviously you dream of playing for Queensland, but it's not something I ever set a goal to do. It wasn't until the night Kevvie called me that I thought, oh wow, I'm playing for Queensland. So it was something I dreamt of doing, but it wasn't something I put a lot of focus into.
What was your emotion after you've hung up from Kevvie? The realisation then would have hit that you were playing for Queensland. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I'd never forget it. Actually, I was. I'd been at training maybe for recovery that day or something. And I remember seeing on the TV that someone, I can't remember who, but someone had been suspended. I think it might have been Jared Wallace. He'd been charged with something, and he was 18th man in the first game of 2017 series, I think, and likely going to be, the next man called up because of someone else's injury. And so I thought, oh well, I might be 18th man. Like that was where my head was at. That'd be great. What an achievement that'd be to be 18th man. And that's about where the limit of my expectation had got to. And then when Kevvie called, again, I probably still thought I was going to be 18th. He was going to tell me I'd be 18th man. And when he said you're making your debut for Queensland, I think I just thanked him over and over again. And then I got off the phone and I told my wife, and I think I had tears in my eyes, and I called mum and dad and told them. It was one of the great moments of my life for sure.
What was it like walking into camp?
Daunting. It's funny because I was at the Storm with Cameron Smith and Billy Slater, Cooper, Will Chambers, and still I found it daunting. So I'd been with that calibre of players for a few years already, and they're great, and I was great mates with them and stuff. But yeah, I felt at another level going into Origin camp. I hadn't really ever met Jonathan Thurston, so even then I was a bit starstruck by him, and um, so it was daunting, but it was exciting. Yeah.
Well, game 2 of 2017 was the debut. What were your memories of it? What are your memories of that game?
It was obviously very special for me to debut, and I remember just wanting to not muck up basically, and I think I did have a couple of muck ups that game, but I think the memories of just I think JT might have dragged us over the line in that game. He kicked that goal from the sideline, and a couple of other players came up with some big plays to win the game, and I had just immense relief that we got there. We'd made a fair, like the Kevvie and the selectors had made a fair few changes going into that game, and I'm pretty sure there was a lot of doubters on those changes, but to get the win meant a lot. And we'd lost the first game, so to be able to keep the series alive, you just know as a fan how much that means to not only yourself and the team but the entire state, and what that would have meant for them. So I just had this relief, I think, at the end of it. Yeah.
Was it quick?
It was fast. It was you're in a washing machine, and it was just really fast, really just chaotic, and it was a whole nother level to what I'd experienced before. The closest I'd probably got to would have been the 2016 Grand Final by that point, but even then, this was like another level up. So yeah, it was fast and crazy, and then I was fortunate enough to get a game in game 3 again, to play in the decider at Suncorp, and that almost pips the debut just because it was at Suncorp. So
I was going to ask you that, running out at Suncorp Stadium for the first time. Take us through that.
Yeah, that was pretty special. It was up there with Kevvie calling me that night to tell me I was debuting. Running out to a sold out Suncorp for a decider is up there with one of the great moments of my life. And again, we won the game, and we put together a pretty good performance, and Cameron Smith played in his last game. Cameron Munster played in his first game. So it was all in all a pretty special event now that I look back at it.
And what does it mean to you to be able to look back on not 1, not 2, 3, 4, but 5 Origin games?
Yeah, it means a heck of a lot. Like I said, I think growing up, young players, like I was one of those young fellas that just couldn't wait for Origin period each year. And then, in the lead up to the game, it's all you talk about, and you go out at school and you're playing, and everyone wants to play as Queensland. So, you're playing footy at school, thinking about Origin that night, and then the game's on, and then everyone's talking about Origin the next day. And for me to go out and play for Queensland 5 times, it's something I'm very humbled by, I think. And I know how much it means to everyone across the entire state. And it's just special to be a part of it.
There's pivotal moments in people's lives, no doubt, where they look back and say, that was a trigger for this, that and the other. It seems, sitting here listening to you, the decision not to go to Windsor, but to go back home, play with Central, win the Player of the Year 3 years in a row, and then be approached by Melbourne, are the synergies that have led you to where you are. How important was it for you to go to Melbourne?
I think very important. I think everyone, everyone works hard, obviously, and there's luck involved in any career, I suppose, let alone footy, right? So, but I think I got a couple of strokes of luck in that I made that decision to go back home, like you said, and then I got lucky that Paul Bunn was the head of. He just started as the recruitment manager at the Storm, and I was his first signing actually at the Storm. So when he got there, and so that's lucky, that he started there and he saw something in me, or one of his scouts tipped him onto me or however that worked. But so that was all very lucky. And then to wind up at the Storm where they value hard work and effort over everything else, it's probably lucky there as well. So I think all clubs value hard work and effort, of course. But I was at a club with a coach and senior players that probably take it even further.
3 grand finals in a row, 1 victory out of the 3, which is better than none, I suppose.
Yeah.
Memories of 2017 with that win over the North Queensland Cowboys?
Yeah, it was great. We had a really good team that had played most of us had played in the 2016 loss, obviously, and I think you always say that doesn't drive you, but looking back, it certainly did. I think you obviously focused on the present, but you are shaped by your past. So I think we were pretty driven that year. We had a really dominant or successful season in the regular season, and it was one of those years, I think, where if you can put your best on, you'll take it to any team, and we probably knew that deep down, that if we could turn up and play our best, particularly on grand final night, then we'd be a real shot at taking it away. And to win a premiership, it's a pretty special thing, especially after losing one the year before. We were pretty happy, and it's a great moment of my life and my career for sure.
And how did you end up at Newcastle?
I remember, I think it was probably Nathan Brown or Darren Mooney was their footy manager at the time. Just got in contact. I was off contract with the Storm. And it just ended up being a good fit. I went up there and had a look around, and I could see they'd been through a few tough years in terms of their results, but they had a good young squad, and it was building. And in 2018, when I was still at the Storm, Newcastle had sort of turned a corner in terms of, I think they might have got the spoon the year before that or something, but they were on an upward trajectory, and I thought that I could go in with, I suppose, what I'd learnt at the Storm and I suppose add a bit to them in terms of a bit of like just being a consistent player and driving standards and things like that. And it was good. It was a really good experience at the Knights. The first year I was there was a bit, I suppose, tumultuous at the end because Nathan Brown ended up, getting moved on, or he left, or whatever happened. So that was unexpected and not something I'd ever experienced. Obviously, being at the Storm, it was with a coach that was pretty solid, has been solid for 20 odd years. So, so that was interesting, but it was a good experience to be in a young crew of players, and we had some good senior players there too, like your Aidan Guerras and Mitchell Pearces and those guys. So sort of to join that crew and help drive it, that was really good.
You didn't finish your career the way you wanted to, I would imagine, with injury and having to retire early with the concussion and the head knocks, etc. What impact has that had on you?
No, it wasn't how I wanted to finish. Obviously, I don't think any player wants to go out injured. And the way it was an interesting one with the concussions. But I think, look, I'm just grateful for what I got. Like I said, a lot of young fellas would tell you if they play one NRL game, they'd be stoked, and they should be, because it's pretty hard to get there. And so I was really grateful for what I did get, and I thought that I'd squeezed as much as I could out of myself, and I was probably, I had more in me, but at the same time, I was comfortable that I've done I'd done a lot at the time, so I took a bit of solace in that.
Who had the biggest influence on your career?
Oh, it's a great question. I'm gonna probably a bit left field. I'm gonna say that first coach I had when I got back to the Capras. We were actually the Comets back then when I went back there, and then we rebranded to the Capras. But Wayne Barnett, his name is, and I mean my parents, of course, and my wife, huge influence on my career. But I think when I got back to the Comets or the Capras, having Wayne give me a chance when I probably wasn't all that confident in myself. And I was lacking confidence. I was probably lacking a bit of drive, and he really, I suppose, like the way he coached, I don't know if he did it intentionally for me or if it was just the way he did it for that team, but he got the best out of me in that season. And then I went on to play a few good years, and then it all skyrocketed from there. So, of course, my parents for instilling so many, great, I suppose, hardworking attributes in me, and my wife for, being a constant support. But I just don't know if it would have happened without Wayne being the coach he was at the time. So, yeah, shout out for Wayne.
Reflecting now, Tim, on a career that was more than 130 NRL games, 5 State of Origins, a premiership winner. How do you reckon the young bloke at North Rocky playing on the wing with his brothers would have thought if someone would have said that to him?
Yeah, I don't think he'd believe you. I don't know. Yeah, I would have been, like I said, stoked with one game of NRL, let alone 100 odd and some Origin games. So I think, yeah, just really pleased, really surprised. Yeah.
Well, FOG number 191, Tim Glasby, thank you so much for your time and congratulations on a wonderful career.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.